Welcome to the Urban Cowgirl Show.
Urban farming. What does that mean? Well, urban means you're not in the country. And we're between country and city here. We've got irrigation going everywhere on our 5 acres here in West Santa Cruz. But some of the pastures or pasture corrals are doing better grass-wise than others. And I believe that this corral is going to do better if we can aerate. And we have an aerator, which I bought, I believe, maybe from Sears years ago. We've weighted it down with some concrete blocks. We're going to, for the first time today, try to put some holes in the ground without destroying the grass that's there, reseeding, covering the seed with nitrogen treated shavings, maybe bring some compost if we decide it's appropriate. But I think with the proper holes in the ground, the aeration, the water that falls on this corral pasture will stay where we want it to stay. You see, it's sloping. It's sloping so much that in winter, it doesn't look like a real serious slope, but in winter, to help the rainwater get to the creek, and I'm pointing to the creek, we had to put in a very deep French drain right here along the fence. And the water seeps into the pipe and gets carried out to the creek without making a big muddy mess here or even in this corridor. So it occurs to me that if we can just somehow keep this irrigation water where it's spraying, the grass will do better, because I have found out that within 2 or 3 days with the proper water, my grass will grow noticeably this time of year, and it is June 2012. So we're going to start up this aerator. We're going to see, especially here, where we know the terrain is such that the water will continue to flow southward, we're going to make some holes. Now, we've never really ridden this Craftsman mower with the aerator attached in this corral, and so we're concerned about safety, especially when we get to the east corner and Scott wants to turn up the hill. Will he have to lift the aerator? And if he lifts the aerator, will the whole unit become unstable? We're going to do this very slowly, and we're showing you, because just showing you the finished product, I feel, is not as good for anybody who's trying to learn how to be an urban farmer. We're trying to show you every step of the way, as we do when we train our livestock as well. Okay, so this is rather noisy, and if I need to have you stop it, I'm going to go like this, and we're going to watch to see if we can properly aerate. We call this particular pasture corral HVC4 East. We are going to reseed it with, it's got a lot of trees. We're going to reseed it with red fescue, creeping red fescue, which we know does well in shade. But out there where it gets a lot of sun, we're going to reseed it with Bermuda, which makes a nice blanket of grass. But reseeding means cover it so the birds don't eat it, and water it, and watch the irrigation pattern and see what works and doesn't work. And of course, it's a big job this time of year. We've got to blow these weeds away, remove them, the leaves, because they're covering the grass. And we don't want leaves here. We want grass for browsing and grazing of my livestock. Okay, so you'll see for the first time now that we're going to try it, and we'll show you if it works and what we have to do if it doesn't work to make it work. Go ahead, Scott. With him that far away, I think I can talk into the microphone. We don't want to be too close to the trunks of the trees. These are oak trees. We don't water them anyway because that will kill the trees. But every square inch that does see sun or is capable to grow some sort of grass, we like it to be for browsing and grazing without killing the trees. Then the other thing that comes to my mind is, could we do it even without that small Craftsman mower? Could we have my zebus, for example, pull that aerator around? What do you think, Kyle? You've seen them pull.
Yeah, it might be it's really heavy though.
It's really heavy. Can they pull something that heavy? I don't know. I'll reevaluate and see if we can teach them to pull an aerator that's weighted down. And if so, we'll show you how we do it, how we teach them to do it. They have pulled a stone boat. They have pulled logs. They have pulled singly and in pairs, anything we've asked them to pull. But we've never asked them to pull an aerator. Now we may want to clean up these leaves and then aerate again. I'm just not sure whether or not the leaves are not interfering with the tines of the aerator.
I don't think so.
Okay, we'll see, because we are going to clean up the leaves and we'll see if we see the little aeration holes. And we'll see probably within a few days whether or not we can seed it and have the grass grow under these circumstances, partial shade, full sun. Now, as soon as we turn off the machine, and I think we will do that soon, I just want to read a bulleted list that I made a few days ago about other urban farming tasks we need to do around here and decisions that need to be made when we do them. Because you can do things for farming that may not work too well when you have livestock grazing. And in fact, I don't like to keep my livestock off their corrals and pastures because we don't have a lot of land here, only 5 acres. And we do have grass here, and they wander out here day and night. So I'd rather not close it off. I just hope I have enough land that they can find some place to browse and graze while this is growing after we seed it. And you know, with the proper irrigation and the proper choice of seed, it will grow quickly. I think he's going to make one more pass, then I'll read my bulleted list, and as we proceed with this show and other shows in this strand of urban farming, we'll discuss each item and video relevant clips. Okay, we don't think that the leaves got in the way of making the holes, but the next thing to do is to get our blower and our rake and get rid of these leaves in our yard waste bins and see if we can now reseed. Again, creeping red fescue under the oak trees, Bermuda and pasture seed in the full sun, and then make sure the irrigation does not go past the drip line of these oak trees, because that irrigation water could kill these trees, and we don't want to do that. Now here, just a discussion very quickly of my bulleted list. Composted manure is slippery when wet, so cannot allow horses on it, or just use it sparingly. Don't use composted manure if you can help it, and not when it's going to be wet, because horses go running around and it's very slippery. And that in order to make sure we have enough compost, we need to get some kind of a plan to turn my compost in their bins more frequently. It will compost faster and more completely. One of the items on my bulleted list was using this aerator, so we just did it. We'll see how it works. Always, when you cover your ground with seed, keep in mind that the birds will see it if you can see it. So cover it with something that will keep the birds from seeing it. And we use nitrogen-treated shavings, easily gotten from our local Central Home Supply. Now, I do have a soil test probe, and I have done soil test analyses in the past with a nearby soil test analysis lab in Watsonville. But you know what? When I got the analysis, I didn't quite understand how to use the results of it. Nowadays, there are apps you can get for your smartphone that will help you to keep track of analyses and maybe even help you to interpret the results of the analyses. So I'm working on studying Google, studying the internet. I have a Droid phone to see whether I can get an app that will help me to do this urban farming more smartly. And I've already mentioned that I don't like to keep my livestock over existing browsing grazing areas, so we hope we can keep this particular area open to them, even though we've just aerated and intend to seed. I don't like to rototill existing pastures, which have grazable grass. I don't like to disturb the soil. It makes it muddier in the winter. It's grazable grass, so it is some place the horses and the cows can go to browse and graze. So whenever possible, unless it's bare land, and I don't have much of that left here because I've been farming with pasture planting here for the last decade or so, I do not rototill. But a lot of people are not tilling anymore. It's called no-till. So there are certain advantages and disadvantages to no-till, and I actually use RFD TV programs to help me understand those advantages and disadvantages. Okay, I'm going to proceed to investigate apps for urban farming that I can put on my Droid phone. My helpers are going to proceed to prepare, in particular, this area with for seeding, nitrogen shavings covering, maybe composting in certain areas, and irrigating, which I have automatic irrigation valves everywhere at Shadrach Farms. And we have a online spreadsheet that tells us when we turn things on and when we don't, how long it stays on, and we just watch it daily to make sure that the water is getting where we want it to go, and that it's doing what we want it to do. I get 32 gallons per minute here from my well, which is 150 foot deep, and it's more than adequate to do what I want to do here on my 5 acres, as long as we time it right and don't overlap irrigation so that we can use the full pressure that we have available. We'll show you our progress in urban farming and pasture management as we go on. Well, it's June 29th, 2012, and look how thick and nutritious looking is my Timothy hay in my Timothy hay test site. The water, the sun, although right now it's overcast, even the shade helped it to thrive. Only one place did it not thrive, and that's in this corner. We added some more seed, and you can see a little bit shorter grass here, no grass here. Who knows? We cover it with nitrogen shavings to protect it from the birds. Maybe the birds got to it somehow anyway. But all in all, I'd say 95% of my Timothy hay in my test site in year 2012 is doing very well. And we'll see what we try to do next year now that we've got 2 test site results under our belt here in Shadrach Farms, an urban farm. We're doing urban farming here. Well, we are making progress in our urban farming and pasture management. This is a corral, we call it HVC 3 East, which is right next to the corral that we aerated for you on camera. We aerated this corral. We adjusted all the irrigation. We took the dry spots and the spots where the grass was very meager. We added our homemade organic compost. We seeded it with the proper seed, proper being if it's shady, creeping red fescue. If it's always sunny, well then we prefer to use Bermuda, which makes a nice carpet of grass, but it needs sun. Well, we seeded it, we covered it with nitrogen shavings. You can see that it's quite wet, and the irrigation went off about 3-4 hours ago. So we're going to watch it. We're going to hope that it's going to sprout as good as my Timothy hay site, which I showed you just prior to this particular video clip. And now Kyle, who is my foreman, is operating the camera, and he was out here when we did this particular corral. Were there any surprises here that we didn't have in the contiguous one that we did show on camera?
No, I mean, it was pretty simple. We aerated and then spread compost where we thought the grass needed more nutrients, and then seeded based on whether it was sunny or shady, and then put just a layer of shavings to keep in moisture and keep birds off the seed.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and you see this area is flat. The area that we did, let me point, in this direction, we call it HVC 4 East, it's quite slopey. And I felt that aeration was really necessary there, otherwise the irrigation water tends to sheet drain down the slope and will land in, I'm figuring, our French drain that we dug there to control mud and puddles in the winter. So the aeration should provide holes that, number one, provides air to the earth, and number two, gives a place for, I'm hoping, the irrigation water to land before it disappears in our French drain and travels underground to the creek that's on the east side. Okay, we're going to turn off the camera now. We're going over to our next corral, which is quite different in requirements, and we'll show you how we're dealing with it. This particular pasture corral we call HVC 2 East. It's under a bunch of yew trees and an oak tree. So we prepared it with compost. We aerated it first. We planted creeping red fescue, covered it with nitrogen shavings, and it gets plenty of irrigation, and we will watch to see how our pasture maintenance procedures are working here in this kind of setting. Now, I'm a little bit concerned about what's happening to the other side of this corral. We did that about 2 years ago. I saw an RFD program about being able to plant under yew trees as long as you keep it cleaned up, get the leaves off of it, the branches off of it. The yew trees have really a poison that prevents grass from growing. Well, we did very well the first year and a half or so. We brought in compost, as we did here. We cleaned up the site. We planted, I think that was all creeping red. And it does get irrigated, but it's looking a little bit sparse this time of year. This is July 2012. So I think I'm going to put it on our worker task sheet to clean up the leaves that are dropping as we speak. You can see them drop, clean them up, and plant overseed with some shavings. I don't think we have to bring compost again at this time. Now the next thing you're going to see is a little bit northward is our carrot corridor. I've shown it to you in the past. Unfortunately, we haven't planted the carrots yet, and it's already July. I hope it's not too late. Probably isn't. But we're going to walk over to our carrot corridor, which is between HVC 2 East and HVC 3 East, which is what we just showed you before we came here. And I'll tell you what our plan is. Well, let's go, Kyle. We share our pasture grass with deer. There are many of them here in the creek bank. There's a whole family of them grazing in HVC 3 East and HVC 4 East. That's okay. We share it with them. Now here's our corridor. And unfortunately, we got busy doing other things. And it's overgrown again with vinca. Vinca is a constant problem. So we're going to uproot the vinca. We are planning in the next week or two to get soaking hose, inexpensive soaking hose, which will hook up to a nearby spigot right here at the west end of this corridor. We're going to run the soaking hose on both sides, both the south and the north side of the corridor, soak the ground for a while, because it turns out there is kind of a hard pan about 3 inches down, and we want to make sure that we soften up that soil. We can even leave the soaking hose on when we're not here. We're not worried about it spewing if it gets, a riser gets broken. Then we don't do that at night because we always want to be here. But the soaking hose I'm not worried about. So we're playing it by ear. We're going to get ready to plant this carrot corridor, and by making a little furrow down the middle, as long as we know that the earth below it is going to be soft enough to help us grow these carrots and nutritious enough. And if we have to bring compost, we will. And we definitely will cover with the nitrogen-treated shavings so that the birds that hang out in these trees won't come down and eat our carrot seeds before we're ready. Maybe we'll even cover with a little bit of soil. Okay, so can you get those deer? There's the whole family that's been hanging around here quite consistently, and a teeny weeny one right behind the tree there. No more than about 2 feet high, and we're very glad that they've joined Shadrach Farms and are enjoying our urban farming. Now we're going to go to the next southward pasture, which is cross fence, and tell you what we're going to do there, followed by another pasture that my cows use a lot, clear on the south side of my property. Tomorrow we're scheduled to aerate here. Seed with, I would say, look how much sun it gets, I would say Bermuda. Yeah. Cover the seed with nitrogen shavings and make sure that places like right here are getting irrigated. We have risers all over the place, but I look down here and I say, compared to right here, this area is not getting enough water. With the proper water, the proper sun, the proper cover so that the birds don't get the seeds, and the proper seed to use for whether or not it's shady or sunny, I am positive that this urban farm, Shadrach Farms, is going to have beds of grasses everywhere, similar to what we have across the street, which was planted in Bermuda a long time ago and doesn't have all this tree and leaf problem. It's mostly sun, and I love it. It survives the winter. That's what I want to do here in these cross fence corrals. And now to our south pasture. This is what we call our south pasture. It's close to the creek bank. We brought a bunch of compost here about 6 weeks ago. We planted it with, either it was creeping red fescue, or at that time we were using a pasture seed. And look how nice it's coming up. It's coming up nicely, but I want it to be more like a carpet of grass. So we are going to keep planting and overseeding, making sure it gets watered. We just put an extra irrigation line here and try to strengthen the grass that's here. And look over there to the south. That grass that you see there is very short, grazed upon by my cows and my horses all the time. And you can see right now it happens to be in its irrigation cycle. It gets plenty of water. And you can see that the ground is kind of rolling hills, very short rolling hills. So would it help to aerate? I think so. Yeah, we're going to schedule this pasture for aeration. In places like this, I'm not even going to try to grow anything because these are oak trees. We can't water near the trunk of the oak trees, under the drip line of the oak tree. This is going to be just plain earth. I don't even mind if there's leaves on it. But in places like there are new grass. In places like out there where we want to plant some more grass and get it to be a stronger pasture, Yeah, we're going to keep the leaves blown off, raked away, whatever, because the leaves are preventing the grasses from growing the way we want them to grow. Well, now you're looking at the actual backyard to the main house. And you know what? We let our livestock graze back here too. Just beyond that fence is my uncovered arena. And there's a corridor around it on two sides that we keep irrigated, and it's available for pasturing as well. We can open and close that gate depending upon whether or not we want to let the animals out there, but most of the time we do. You're seeing the uncovered arena. You're seeing the corridors that are irrigated. The irrigation happens to be on right now. We have 32 gallons per minute here from our well, and we just make sure that there's no particular line is competing with any other line, and we make sure by observing that every square inch that we want to be grassy gets enough water to be grassy and stay grassy.
See more at www.urbancowgirlchannel.com.